Welcome back to Nightstand Coffee. I'm Todd.
And I'm Jennifer.
And this is season 1, episode 15.
Which is nuts.
Yeah, this is the season finale.
It is. We're gonna draw a close at this particular episode, the last one.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah, so we'll take a short break and then come back for season 2.
Yeah. So our short break entails going on a graduation trip with our daughter Coco, and then taking Coco to college. And so I need to become emotionally stable after doing that. And so we probably need a break, so I'm not just sitting here talking about, my baby left me.
Right. And it gives you guys the opportunity to go back and re-listen to all the episodes that we know that you're just dying to re-listen to.
And for them to contact us in some way and say, hey, could you talk about this? Yeah, we would love that. That's always
great.
That's super helpful.
Yeah.
So we were kind of kicking around a couple ideas today. So this may be like a compilation of thoughts. So you had talked about mentoring.
Yes.
And then I talked about comparison, essentially. And so will you go first?
Well, so one of the things that I notice, one of the things that I when I look back at our marriage, and especially early in our marriage, and when I look at a lot of young couples, is essentially it feels like that you just kind of get thrown to the wolves.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, we know you've never been married before. We know you've never done this before, but good luck.
Right.
You know, go figure it out. And some couples do. And obviously some couples don't. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a real need for mentorship. I think there was a time in our culture when, because the vast majority of couples stayed together, that kids grew up in homes where, even if it was by osmosis, they were being mentored, right?
Yeah.
They were learning what it meant to weather hard times, to work in partnership together, to, you know, the nuclear family was the bedrock of society. And
Yeah.
that, sorry about that. Mm-hmm. And that was the norm. Well, now we live in a culture where that's not the norm.
Well, I think even like for your own lineage, like didn't your grandma and grandpa, like when they got married, they moved in with their parents and like lived in the same household?
My grandparents did. Yeah. Right. I don't know if that was
how standard that was.
Yeah. I don't know if that was the case for everybody.
So that'd have been what? Depression era ish?
Yeah. So, yeah, it would have been right there in the 30s. Late 30s, early 40s. So right before World War II was when my grandparents would have gotten married.
Well, and so just brief rabbit trail fun fact, like one of the things I always remember about that is that on their wedding night that the mom and dad like left them to the house by themselves.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. So,
which thinks that sounds crazy.
Man, so my grandfather, my dad's dad, that's who we're talking about, is my dad's parents. So my dad's dad had to quit school after the sixth grade because his dad had died and he had to take care of the family. He was the oldest boy left in the house, and so he had to go to work. And so he dropped out of school after sixth grade and started to support his family and work. And so he only ever had a sixth grade education, but he was one of the most ingenious men that I ever knew. Like he could fix anything. He had to learn, like get that Depression era mentality. Like, we can't afford to have anybody else do this for us. We got to figure it out.
Right.
So my grandpa could fix anything, like was really like self-sufficient. Anyway, that's...
Well, and I remember they would go to, I don't know if it's McDonald's or Burger King. They'd go out to eat, but they'd split a hamburger.
Oh yeah, always.
And they'd share a drink.
Yeah, and that was from my youngest days. Like I don't ever remember a time, honestly, that they both ordered their own meal. They would order one meal and split it always.
That's so wild to think about. And so, you know, your grandfather had passed away, I think before Carly was born. So over 20 years ago. I was pregnant. Wasn't I pregnant at the funeral?
Maybe. I think that...
No, I was pregnant at Bob's and Melba Jean's wedding.
Yeah.
Okay, this doesn't matter. But so over 20 years ago,
right,
when he passed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, so dropped out of school in the sixth grade, went to work, and he went to work for my grandmother's family.
Okay.
In fact, they gave him room and board. Like he lived with them and worked on their farm.
Okay.
And that's how he met my grandmother.
Nice.
And so from they knew each other when they were very young, and got married very young, by the way, as well. But after when they married, he was still living with my great grandparents. They were still living there. And their honeymoon, it's so funny. I asked, and this is what you were talking about. I asked my grandmother one time. In fact, after my grandpa passed away, after my papa died, we were just asking, hey, tell us your story. Tell us about how you and papa met, and tell us, And so I asked her, tell us about your honeymoon, and she said, well, on our wedding night, Mama and Daddy went over to Uncle Billy, and they, went over to their house and stayed the night so that we could have the house to ourselves. And that was their honeymoon. They got the house to themselves for one night.
That's so nuts.
And,
but the point really that we're talking about is like there was a lot of close knit things, right? Like you were doing life
they lived
together,
side by side. Yeah. So my grandfather, like my great grandpa. Mm-hmm. I mean, my grandpa worked for him. So he literally worked side by side with him every day.
Yeah.
He worked on the farm with him. And so then they watched how my grandparents interacted with each other, how they lived together, how they managed a home together. They were right there with them doing that.
Right.
And even in cases where people didn't live in the same house, like it was very common. You still see this a lot here in Pennsylvania where we live, where like the mom and dad live here, and then they have family property, and they just build a house for the kids over on the other part of the property, and they, and then they're managing the farm together, right? Even if they have day jobs, they're still doing things together to manage the family land. And so then they're living side by side. They're working side by side. They're learning side by side. Families would go to church together on Sunday. Like life was constructed in such a way that you were being mentored, even if it wasn't a formal mentorship. You were learning side by side.
Right. And with the breakdown of the family and so much divorce and stuff, like you don't see good examples always.
And our culture is much more transient.
Yes.
The urbanization of people don't stay on the family farm anymore.
Right.
You move to the city because that's where the jobs are, and you whatever.
Well, even for us, like we got married, like we've never lived in the same town of our family.
No.
Ever.
Yeah.
So like it's been, long-term resources or long distance resources, right? But like we've never lived near family.
Right.
At all. So I'm always jealous of people that get to do that. But
and then even on top of that, there is our tendency to think that the people around us, so if we don't live near our families, and maybe you're not even comfortable enough to talk to your parents about struggles if your marriage is not doing well, or if you do talk to your parents, it's only to complain about your spouse, not to find a solution sometimes.
Sure.
And so, anyway, the point being is that we tend to think, well, everybody else has it together, so I can't tell them that I don't. We're a mess and they're not. And so I don't want them to know, so we try to hide away, or we do a good job of putting on a good face in public. And then when we get home, it's,
Well, or you didn't learn how to talk about any of that stuff growing up. And so when you're as a grown up, you don't know how to even ask about it.
Right.
Like you don't even know how to bring up the topic or even know what's wrong. You just know that you're irritated with your spouse, but you don't quite know why.
Yeah.
And like you got to take time to like really dissect that.
Yeah.
But if that's not a skill that you've practiced, you have to learn how to do that.
Yeah. And then something that, I think this is magnified in ministry. So as a pastor, I think this sometimes is magnified, but I think it's an issue that is across the board, is that, like for me as a pastor, even when I was really young, I felt like my job was to help everybody else have their junk together. And so I couldn't, if I don't have my junk together, or at least if people don't think I have my junk together, then they're not going to listen to what I have to say. I'm not going to be able to help them. So I had to be perfect because everybody else needed me. And like I said, I don't think that's exclusive to ministry, but I think it's multiplied sometimes in ministry or magnified in ministry. And I know for me, that was a big deal. It's like I didn't want anybody else to know I was struggling because I was supposed to be helping them. I was supposed to be the one who had...
Yeah. I don't feel like I've felt that for me, but I'm also a 6 on the Enneagram. And so that I'm have a tendency to look for reassurance. And so I think that I seek out suggestions all the time.
Yeah.
I'm probably annoying in that. Like, I want to make sure that I'm making the right decision, or, have I done this right? Or, is there a better way or whatever? So I think I'm the opposite. Like, I would have a tendency to ask and talk about it.
Yeah. And see, I always felt the need or the pressure to have all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
Like even when I was a kid, I mean, and we've talked, I don't know if we've talked about this on the show,
haven't.
But like to the extent that I would make up something if I didn't know the answer.
Yeah.
Because I wanted people to think that I had the answers.
Well, and your brothers called you the professor.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was something that we had to work on really at the beginning of our marriage. I remember having like you don't have to know everything.
Yeah.
Right.
But I felt the pressure to.
Yeah.
And so for folks who are like me and feel like they have to, the pressure to have everything together, to know all the answers, well, you don't ask for help.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to admit that you don't know.
Yeah. Man. And so, I think we need to consider that, right? Because if you're in your marriage and you're struggling, it's like, and you don't know what to do necessarily. Like, why are we so resistant to that? Because when we were talking about this morning, it's like, if your sink clogs and you can't quite figure out how to get it done, you call the plumber. Right. Or something breaks in your house, you either call someone to come do it for you, or to teach you how to do it, or you call someone that knows how to do it. Like, I think about all the times that we've got my dad involved in projects that we've done at the house because he knew what to do, right? And so then you would work side by side with him, and now you know what to do. Right? And so this is really interesting. This came up, I think I heard the girls talking about it, that they thought that you could fix anything.
Yes.
And I was baffled by that, because when we were first married, I did not think that about you. I didn't think that you could fix everything. My daddy could fix everything. Right.
No, right? You didn't think I could fix anything when we first got married.
Right. But you've grown so much in that. Like, I think you could fix anything now, but I was like, wow, we've come a long way, because like, I didn't, that wasn't my perception. I think part of that though was rooted in, that you didn't do it quickly. Right. Like if something like it was about like responding quickly to a problem, like you didn't necessarily do that, which we have talked about.
And that's actually related to what we're talking about, because my need to have all the answers and my reluctance to admit that I didn't and to ask for help is part of what made me slow to do things, because I was afraid of screwing it up. I was afraid of messing it up. And so just didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Right. I would just freeze. And which is just as bad as screwing it up. Yeah. It would have been, in fact, it may have been better if I'd have just jumped in and gotten my hands dirty and messed it up, because at least I'm doing something.
Right.
Right. And you learn from failure.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes from Albert Einstein is he said, it wasn't that I was smarter than everyone else. I just wasn't afraid of failure. Mm. And so he would just try again and again and again and again until he got it right.
Yeah.
And I know that, sometimes that may not be the best course of action, to keep failing. You may not be able to afford that. You may not have the time to do that. But the point being is that, like, jump in and try your best.
Right. Well, and I do think I see a lot, particularly in our area, because we have such hardworking men in our area. Like, we've got men that work outside. They do really, physical labor jobs.
It's a very blue collar area. Very. Yeah.
And so then, and they excel in that.
Yes.
And so then that's where they want to be, because that's where they excel. They know what to do. So think about the people in my life that I love, that their spouse spends a whole lot of time in the garage, and doesn't come inside much, because like that's what he knows how to do. Mm-hmm. When it comes to like dealing with hard things with the kids or even with his wife, like they don't know what to do. Right. So let's just stay in the garage and do what I know to do.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of us, I mean, I could do that too sometimes. Like a lot of us want to do what we know how to do, and we don't want to ask for help, and we don't want to say, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so I think
we just abdicate.
We do. And so we just don't do anything, and then it just continues to fall apart.
Yeah.
And so the point is, everybody needs some input from somebody somewhere about something. Right.
Yeah. So what does it look like then for a couple to have a mentor?
Well, so
or a mentoring couple even.
Sure. Well, I think the first step is like identifying somebody. You need to look around and go, who has their poop in a group? Whose marriage, do I see looks well? Now, you may need to do some checking, because it may just look good on the outside and not really be good on the outside.
Well, I would say this too, though, like speaking to like couples who've been married for a while who may be listening to this show, and you're automatically disqualifying yourself and going, no, we can't mentor anybody because we're we're kind of a mess ourselves, but you're not as big a mess as you used to be.
Right.
I think about us. We're not perfect.
Right.
We don't have everything together.
Right.
But man, we've come a long, long way. We are way better than we ever have been.
Yeah.
And we continue to grow to get better.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's value in that. I think that we can share with couples who are behind us, and go,
Right.
hey, look, we don't have all the answers, but we've learned a lot.
Yeah. Very
And,
true.
And
Yeah.
so don't disqualify yourself automatically because you go, well, we're not perfect.
Well, I've even would love the thought of creating a marriage mentoring program.
Yeah.
Where you have couples that are trained to do that.
Right.
But I don't know that you necessarily have to be trained.
Right.
Right. But finding someone that is successful in their marriage but you may need to check and ask because it may
Sure.
look successful on the outside and you find out that it's a train wreck at home. That's possible.
So how would they do that? Because if you just ask the couple, they may be honest enough to tell you, but they may not. So how do you vet somebody? That seems like a daunting task to me.
Well, I think that there's signs, how they talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you go to their home, you see how they interact. So it's observation.
Yeah. So it may take some time.
Yeah.
So maybe if you have a couple in mind,
Mm-hmm.
you invite them out to dinner, you invite them over to your house, you spend some time with them before you formalize the relationship. Yeah. And make a decision. Go, okay, well, is this a couple that we want to ask to mentor us or not? And
I think you can ask their friends,
Yeah.
and your friends even just
Yeah.
say, hey, I was thinking about asking so-and-so to be our marriage mentors, or to talk to them about marriage. What do you know about them? Is that a good thing? In the same way
Yeah.
that you try to find a good mechanic. Have you talked to so-and-so about your marriage junk? How do they do? Did they help you? Okay, good. Do they know what they're talking about?
Right.
That kind of stuff.
yeah, and I think you can judge those responses because most of the time people aren't just going to throw their friends under the bus, right? They're not going to go, oh no, they're a mess. They might.
Yeah.
But there may be that kind of hesitant answer where they go, yeah, I think maybe they could, that's probably not a good sign. That's a little bit of a red flag, right? But if you ask their friends and their friends go, oh man, yeah, they would be great. Best marriage I know, then yeah.
Right. And then the second thing would be don't be afraid to ask them.
Right.
Because if you put yourself in their shoes, so let's say that someone sees that you excel in something and they come to you and say, hey, will you teach me what you know?
Right.
You're not going to go, what? Why?
Yeah.
You're not going to be offended by that. You're going to be honored by that.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, oh my gosh, you looked at something in me and that you valued and you want to learn from me.
Absolutely.
I'll be happy to help you. Right.
Yeah.
And so then don't be afraid to ask because that's what you're doing to that person is making them feel honored to be asked.
Yep.
And so they even may be skeptical about their ability to help. They may be going why are you asking me? Because they may feel incompetent in that.
Right.
So when they respond that way, why are you asking? It's not that they think, how dare you ask me? I'm so good that you should, you can't even wipe my feet off kind of thing. It's more about, are you sure you see something in me that you want? Because we're just not always confident in our abilities. But don't be afraid to ask. You just say, hey, can we go to dinner with you and kind of talk through what we've been dealing with and see if you have any input for us? Yeah.
And one of the things that I think about in regard to this is that we have to overcome some kind of cultural pressure or, so what I'm saying is there's this perception at least that there's a generation gap. Mm-hmm. That we're not able to really communicate with each other. We don't speak the same language.
No cap.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not real.
Yeah.
That's not real, right? Just because maybe you use some slang that couple that you're wanting to mentor you doesn't, it doesn't mean that they can't understand where you're at. It doesn't mean that you can't communicate with each other. It doesn't mean there's nothing of value there. And I think culturally we can get into that kind of space sometimes where it's well, they don't have anything to say to me because they don't understand. They're just old.
Yeah.
That's not real.
Right.
It's not real. In fact, what the scripture would tell us is that gray hair is a crown of wisdom, right? Mm-hmm. That there's value in those years, that there's value in that age, that and that there's nothing new under the sun. Mm-hmm. That, the things that you're struggling with, while the circumstances around it may be a little bit different than they were 25 years ago, they're still the same issues.
At the core.
At the core, at the heart of it. People are people.
Right.
We're still dealing with the same stuff. And so those older folks, man, they have value to add to your life.
Right.
And you are missing out if you don't take advantage of it.
True. I think that's a very valid point, and that you should be willing to ask. Like, again, no one's going to be offended if you ask. They may question if they are good enough to be that for you,
Right.
But they're not going to be offended if you ask. And then the next step, I think, is to consider what that looks like.
Right.
And so I do think it looks like an initial meeting where maybe the four of you meet together, like go to dinner. That's a good place. And you kind of set the stage for, hey, this is what we're dealing with. We'd like to talk to you about these things. And then I think you also set up like individual sessions so that and session is a clinical word, but like time together. So like
the husbands
meet, the wives meet, but you got to make sure that it's not just a bash session, that you're not just getting off to the side to go, can you believe they're doing this or they haven't done this or whatever. And so like, don't just let it be about running your mouth. It's about finding solutions. Yeah. It's okay to say, hey, this is what's going on here. Let me tell you the details, but your goal needs to be to solve the problem, not to get the person on your side to go, yeah, that's bad.
Right.
And they can say that, but you have to walk away with a plan. You need to be able to say, what am I going to do with this? Like, this is where I stand. How can what's my role in this issue? Because if there's marriage problems, it's both of you, right? And so what's my role here and what do I need to change? And so, and then walk away with something to shift and do.
Yeah. And then do it. Yeah. Right. Try it. Like, right. I'm sure you face this as a clinician. I face it sometimes as a pastor. One of the most frustrating things is when I feel like I've given people good, sound, godly advice, and then they just ignore it. And not because it like hurts my ego, but because it's like, I'm telling you this because I truly believe this will help you. Yeah. Right. This is, and so if you go to somebody and say, hey, we want you guys to mentor us, and then they give you some advice, at least try it. Right. Right. If it doesn't work, okay, maybe you need a different mentor. Maybe they're not, whatever, but like try.
Yeah. Well, and I would recommend some authors. So like Gary Thomas is someone that's done a lot of marriage books. And also Gary Smalley. I guess you got to be named Gary to be a marriage specialist.
Les and Leslie.
Les and Leslie Parrott are definitely authors that are good. One book that I would really talk about would be Deborah Filleda's book, which is
Choosing Marriage?
Nope. Married Sex.
Oh, okay.
And so, Choosing Marriage is good too, but I was thinking about the married sex one.
Okay.
Because especially if you grew up in the purity culture, like basically you were told, okay, hey, if you wait till marriage, sex is going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. It's so great. Like you don't have all this baggage and you come into it, it's going to be great. Well, and then you get there and you're like, what do we do? Yeah. Right. And so and then it takes a really long time because all you've seen movies and scenes from that and you're like, oh, this is what it looks like.
Right. Yeah. And
it ain't that. Right. And so, and then you don't know how to flirt because that was such an something you weren't allowed to do. Right. And so you just don't know what to do. Yeah. So this is a really great book to kind of talk through those things. And so,
it's like any other part of marriage. Like if you come in, like you don't know what you're doing.
True.
You don't, right. Unless you've had good mentors, you don't know what you're doing.
Right. And so then I would highly recommend that book. If sex is a challenge for your relationship, I think that would be a really good resource for that. Yeah. So definitely consider finding a mentor. Find somebody that you want to talk to.
And talking about books, like authors can be mentors in a way as well. Like they can't give you the direct feedback that a mentor couple, like a formal mentoring relationship can have. So I recommend both. I'm not saying either or. It's both and. But authors can be great mentors for you. True. Right? You can learn a lot. Like one of my favorite books on marriage is The Meaning of Marriage by Tim Keller. And so like it really gets into the biblical kind of concept of marriage and what covenant relationships are and that kind of thing. It's excellent. Well,
and I was going to throw out too what Radical Husbands do.
Really good.
What's the author's name for that? Do you remember?
I cannot remember.
You can get it on Amazon, but I recommend that book a lot in session. That's a really good thing because I think the husbands feel seen in that book. Like when they read it, they say, yeah, exactly, see what's happening here. And it's really practical how to apply it. It's super
practical. Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I would say for that book, like it is not, it really is like just aimed at the practice. Like, here's what you do. Like,
Right.
go do this.
Right.
You know? And so, you know, I don't know if I would say like it's marriage for dummies or whatever, but like it speaks to men. Sometimes we're just like,
Just tell me what to do.
Just tell me what to do. Well, there's the book for you.
Yeah,
It
right.
tells- Go do this.
Right. So what radical husbands do. So yeah, that'll give you some reading in the like the the time that we're not having our
Yeah,
our
you gotta
podcast. Here's all your homework for that. So do anything else to add about the mentoring thing that you would just be willing to ask? I think
Be willing to ask, and
Because
and then to be prepared to spend time with those folks.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, both for them when you're making the ask. Make sure that you communicate what the expectations are, what you're wanting a mentorship to look like. You know, if you're wanting to get together once a month or every other week or weekly or whatever, but like it takes time together. You know, maybe you want to do a thing where once a month you go out as couples or you get together as couples, and then 2 weeks later it's individual where it's the husbands together and the wives together. But like, talk about what that would look like. And recognize that it's going to take some time and some investment, and communicate that to the couple that you're asking to mentor you, because they need to count the cost as well and decide whether they have the time to do that, to invest in you in that way. You know, so it's not just a, hey, can we call you when things are going off the rails? It's a, we want to walk alongside you and learn from you.
Right. And so I think that can just be really a game changer.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a good idea.
Absolutely.
So then let's transition a little bit and talk about like things that we do that makes us perceive our marriage to be worse than it is.
Okay. Help me out with that.
Well, so what came to mind was thinking about like the content that we take in and how we apply it to our marriage.
Oh, okay.
So thinking about if we're watching Hallmark movies for women, if you're like reading romance novels, if you're watching rom-coms, if you're reading smutty literature in some ways, like, or what is it that you're bringing
You're on
in?
book talk.
What?
Book talk.
I don't know what that is.
Well, it's apparently, I don't know a lot about it, but apparently it's a corner of TikTok where people are writing these stories and making like, you know, like reading them on videos or like, anyway, I don't know a lot about it. Apparently it's part of that culture.
Okay, well, interesting. So, and then I think the same is, so that's kind of the women's side of those things. I think the same is true for men and like what you're taking in. Like I think, well, and pornography really touches both
Sure.
genders. It's not just a male problem. There's women and men. It's just a people problem.
Right.
And so, you know, what are you taking in? Because when you take those things in, I think it makes you be discontent, right? Because if it's the romantic intimacy part of things, like, you know, where they show up with flowers at the door or whatever, you know, and you're like, oh, my husband never does that for me. He never thinks about me that way. You know, you get this like, my marriage sucks because I don't have these things happening. And so you start looking at what other people have or what you think other people have, right?
Right.
And then you start going, well, my marriage isn't anything like that.
Yeah, or men, if you're watching porn, you know, the women, you know, they never have a headache. They're never tired.
They're always ready.
They're always ready. They're always willing. You know, and it creates a false narrative. It creates a false idea of what those things should be like. Those are 2-dimensional characters, right? They are not fully realized people. They don't like it's, and so what we then do is we create this idea in our minds that our wives should be 2-dimensional. They shouldn't have any other feelings or any other, you know, any other purpose in life than to please us sexually, which is ridiculous. It's crazy.
Right.
It's crazy.
Do you think that you had that in mind, like when we were married at the beginning?
Probably.
That there wasn't more to that than there wasn't more to me than that?
I mean, I don't know that I would have articulated it in that way, but I certainly had an expectation that had been shaped by somewhat by porn and somewhat by just culture, and honestly, somewhat by watching your dad date.
Oh,
you know,
not my dad, your own dad.
Not my own dad.
Yeah.
As a kid, after my parents divorced, you watch your dad date, and there's kind of this, you know, and not that he dated tons and tons of women, but somewhat, there's a parade of women who come through your house, and it changes, and they're, and like hearing your dad talk about how hot somebody is, or like, it was weird.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't really understand how weird it was as a kid. It's only as an adult, as I've started to kind of process those things, that I go, that was jacked up, and so probably, yeah, to a large extent, certainly in the area of sex, I had that kind of expectation that you would always be ready, that you would always be willing, that we would have sex every day, like that I would come home and you would be in,
Screening you at the door.
Right, exactly.
And next to nothing.
Yeah.
Wrapped in...
cellophane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. That's never happened, by the way. That sounds hot and sweaty. Like that does not sound like a good time.
Yeah, saran
at
wrap. Yeah.
all.
Anyway.
And sticky. And so I think it's important to understand, where you're getting these ideas from, right? And so to stop and say, where is this coming from?
And why the people who create that kind of media create those kinds of narratives, right? It's because it's escapism. It feeds a fantasy. It's not real. It's not, but what they are doing is appealing to that part of our brain, because it gives, there's the dopamine
Release
hit. Yeah. That goes along with that. It's very much like drugs. That's why porn is addictive. That's why reading those kinds of novels is addictive for women. Because but the purpose of that, the point of that is that it's not real, right?
Right.
And what we're trying to do is escape from reality, which is not good for us, by the way. Not in that way. I mean, unplugging is different than escapism, right? Real rest, real Sabbath, right? Real restoration is not the same thing. And in fact, what happens when we have that kind of dopamine cycle, whether it's with, chemicals, or whether it's with porn, or whether it's with shopping or whatever, that then has to be fed over and over and over and over, to the point that we then cannot gain satisfaction from what is.
Oh, yeah, real.
Yeah.
So there's something called pornography-induced erectile dysfunction. And so it was discovered when a urologist kept seeing men age 19 to 29 showing up with erectile dysfunction. And he's like, why is this happening? This is not an age group that needs to be happening. You are at your best. Right. And so this doesn't make sense. And so then he started exploring it, and it turned out that they were looking at pornography. And because that picture changes over and over and over, that they became
desensitized.
Thank you to that, and like that's the only way they're able to get off. And so
Right.
then when they're with a woman, they can't do anything because it's like it's not as stimulating as the images were.
Right.
And so then, so there's an issue, right?
Yeah.
And so, how you fix that is that you take a break from pornography, right? Like you completely don't look at it, and then that
which is a good idea for life.
Right. Just that's a good idea. But anyway, I just found that highly interesting. Going, man, the enemy has done so much to to break down our families and to break down the marriages and healthy relationships. And this is one of those ways.
Yeah. Well, and that's how sin works in our lives. Whether it's pornography, or whether it's excessive drinking or drugs, or whatever, is that. I mean, Scripture even talks about this. There's pleasure in sin for a season, right? And so there's this promise that it holds out. Like I can give you this. I can give you the relief that you're looking for. I can give you the pleasure that you're looking for. I can give you the fulfillment that you're looking for. And it makes good on that promise for a very short time.
Mm-hmm. Well, the story of the prodigal son is the best example of that. Like he goes and has a good time, and then he realizes what's happening.
Quickly turns, right, and it becomes destructive. There's a reason that the Scriptures compare sin to like leprosy or cancer or those kinds of things, is because it starts to eat its way from the inside out. Yeah, until it destroys, and so then. Well, and so that's what's happening with our marriages, is that we are feeding ourselves on these things, and not just porn. I mean, like, look, the narrative that lots of movies and television shows will give you is that Like you referenced the Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
Right? Almost without fail in a Hallmark movie, the protagonist, the main character, is in a relationship that's not really fulfilling them. And then they meet this perfect person who's,
this little low key, like kind of relaxed and not near as high strung as the first person.
Yeah. And
usually wearing plaid,
and is saving, is saving their grandmother's, bakery.
Or something.
Yeah. Right. And so, but that's the narrative that's painted, that, hey, there's this perfect person out here somewhere, and so this relationship that you're in that's not fulfilling to you, just leave that. Just leave that behind, because that, and that's not what the scriptures,
right?
That's not real life, for one thing, and it's certainly not the image that the Word of God holds up to us about what marriage should look like.
Well, and I may have said this on here before. I know I talk about it quite a bit, but like, I can't watch DIY TV. I can't watch it because start watching people's houses and I'm like, ooh, that's cool. I need that.
Yeah.
I need that in my house. Oh,
yeah.
Man, what if we like knock down that wall in this house? Like, that would be so amazing. And I start getting really dissatisfied with what I have.
Yeah.
And so I had this realization, like, I can't watch this stuff. Like, not that it's bad, not that it's like a bad thing to watch people renovate their homes, but it just created this discontentment within me to go, like, I don't have the money to fix this. I don't have $100,000 to pour into my house right now and to make this kitchen so amazing. And so then I would just be like, whoa, my life sucks. But does it? No. But it's not, because I'm comparing to these people in California who are doing all this remodeling because they have millions and millions of dollars. And it's like, that's not real. And so like, I have made a decision. I'm not going to watch that stuff. Like, I just simply can't. Right. And so it's,
and I think that speaks to how that, like, for each of us, the thing that we're struggling with may be different.
Right.
The thing that's a trigger for you may not be a trigger for your neighbor next door or your best friend, but all of us have something, and we need to identify what those things are. Because what happens is those things begin to function like they're our saviors for us. And they're not, right? It's not the answer. It's not, yeah.
Well, and I want to say this too, that like one of the things I talk about in my sessions is when pornography is a thing, when it comes up as a topic or as a challenge or an issue within the person's life, I frequently point to and say, okay, so what is it that you're feeling out of control of? Because there is a connection with feeling out of control of something that drives you to look at pornography.
Yeah.
Now, when I introduce that idea, they're like, what? No, nothing's out of control. But if they sit long enough and think about it, we can make A plus B equals C.
Yeah.
So what happens is you're feeling out of control of something in your life. It could be your job. It could be your relationship with your spouse. It could be your kids. It could be your finances. Any of those things. And so whatever the list is, there's something that you feel like you're not sure what to do with. And you're like, I can't control this. This doesn't feel good. And so what you can control is your sexual response. And so then you go and look at pornography. You get the release that you need. You get that dopamine release, and you feel, okay, well, this is something I can control. And so then you look at it, you get off on it, and then immediately the guilt comes in.
Right.
You start feeling guilty about what just happened. Then you swear it off. I'm never going to do this again. I can't believe I did that. It was the last time.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it anymore. And then, however long later, it pops back up in the same way. So if you're in my office and we're talking about these things, what I then do is like, okay, so let's figure out how to deal with what you're out of control of. Like, we're not even going to talk about pornography right now. We're going to talk about what's out of control.
Yeah.
And then figure out a way to feel that and to figure out what that is and deal with that issue. And then inevitably the pornography comes more under control and then is eliminated. Right. And so, because ultimately that's what you want. Like, I don't think anybody wants to go, I want to be looking at porn all the rest of my life. I don't think people want to do that. I could be really wrong about that. Maybe you can bring someone to introduce me to that's like, this is going to be something I want as a part of it.
Well, I would say certainly
in Christian cultures.
If you're a follower of Jesus, then, Scripture doesn't leave room for that. I think certainly there are people who are outside of the faith who at least would tell you that they're perfectly fine with porn, that, like they're the whole like couples, we watch this together because it gets us, ready, and which is not real, by the way, and we could that's a different podcast, but point being, even if you think you're okay with it and it's not hurting you, it's hurting you.
Well, and then I also want to add just how easy it is to have access to it. Like this, like before, like I remember being a kid that you would see it behind the counter at the gas station all covered up. You could see that it was something, but you didn't know what it was. Like, and so you had to have the guts to like ask the person behind the counter, or you had to go behind the wall at Blockbuster.
Yeah.
To be, I did that in college because we were like curious.
Bookstore.
And so we'd go behind the wall and we would giggle because it was stupid. But anyway, I remember doing that at 18, 19 years old, going, what's behind the wall? I can go look now. And so go and look, and it's like, this is stupid. But so like you had to have like get over a hump of embarrassment essentially to but
now you don't.
Now you don't. You just put in that address and there it is. And so you can hide it, or you feel like you can hide it. And so but what is happening is that it overtakes your brain and you end up talking about it a lot. Like, honestly, I think sometimes I can pick up on someone having pornography, either addiction or habitual use, because almost everything goes back to a sexual topic.
Yeah.
It's either sexual jokes or something sexual about it. It's like it takes over your brain and it takes over what you think about.
Yeah.
And it impacts things.
So there are studies that show actually that your IQ goes down if you use porn habitually.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You want to be a dummy? Look at porn.
Yeah.
Man, okay. I haven't heard that yet. That's pretty wild. I understand that because it changes the structure of your brain.
Yeah.
And so then you aren't able to think about anything but that.
Right.
And so there are, ways to overcome that. There's a book that I really liked called Your Brain on Porn. It's not a faith-based book, but it's where I learned about the pornography-induced erectile dysfunction, and like it gives some really practical tips on like how to walk away from that, like what to do.
Unwanted was also a really good book, and that is like
faith-based.
Yeah.
And I think I have that in my Amazon cart. I still haven't read it, but it's on the list.
Yeah.
Do you have a copy of it, or did you read it on your phone?
I have it on Amazon or on Kindle, and then I don't think I have a hard copy. I think I did, and I gave it away.
Okay.
I was going to say, that's a book that I've recommended to a lot of guys that I've talked to.
That's a good thing. And so really, I think I didn't really mean for this whole second part to be about porn, but it's okay that it is. I really wanted to be about like, be careful about what you're taking into your life because it's impacting how you view your situation.
Right. Well, and so I think in that sense, porn is an analog for a lot of things.
Okay.
Whatever it is that you are using or utilizing to escape from the reality that your marriage isn't what you want it to be, or the stress that you're going through, if the thing that you're turning to is something other than, number one, Jesus, and then number two, your spouse, well, that's a problem.
Right.
That's a problem.
Well, and we haven't even gotten into like how your spouse feels about you looking at porn. Like as a female spouse with your husband looking at porn, you're thinking, why is it that I'm not good enough for you? Why is it that I am not enough for you? Because clearly the average woman doesn't look like those pornography women. And so then like, oh, you're upset that I'm 20 pounds heavier, 40 pounds, 100 pounds heavier than when we got married. And so you're not attracted to me anymore. So you want to look at something that's more attractive and you don't even want me. When
9 times out of 10,
that ain't why.
That ain't why.
And so it's important to be aware of that. Like it's that core issue, that out of control stuff. Now there may be something going on in your marriage that feels out of control that's causing him to do that. And it simply could be that you're not having sex, and so he's not feeling connected to you in that way. That feels out of his control, and so he looks for it in another way. That can be true, but I don't think it's always based in, I'm not attracted to my wife anymore, so I'm going to go do this instead. Right. And so, I mean, there's a lot there, and I'm sure we could do several episodes about that kind of stuff. But I think it's important that we create a safe space for our spouse to come to us and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. And to not berate them, or, I mean, it's okay to be frustrated and irritated, but like you need to make it a safe space where they can come tell you. Yeah. Because you don't want to make it where I can't come tell you that I'm having a problem. Because then they're like, I can't tell my wife that I'm doing this, And so, and then it ends up getting discovered, and then that's a whole nother thing. Right. And so I think there's a lot there. So I don't know that I can say all of it in this episode.
Yeah. I don't know that we have time to unpack all of that right now, but I think the takeaway for couples should be, and number one, you need mentors in your life, right? Going back to part one of this show. And then secondly, if there are things that you consistently turn to when when things between you and your spouse are stressful, you need to understand that those things probably are compounding the problem rather than giving you the actual relief that you're
Right.
seeking after.
It's breeding discontentment
Yeah.
and not providing a solution.
Right.
And so then you need to be willing to talk about those things. And so those are perfect topics to talk about with a marriage mentor.
Yes.
Look how I made those match.
Hey, way
Good
to go.
stuff. Good stuff. So, we would love if anyone could come up with a closing tagline for us to tell us about that in the next little bit. We're still
Insert
looking for
tagline here.
We still need to figure out how to shut this puppy down. So
Until next time.
oh man. Okay. See you later.